appreciate your coming to this launch session. I'm Stephanie Brown. I'm the director of the Park Library at the School of Journalism and Mass Communication here. And my co-planners are Gardner Treneman, who's going to lead the panel, and Doug Diesenhaus, who is videotaping this. We're going to be posting it on YouTube, and I'll send out an email. We are thrilled to have Winston, who's the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, as our primary speaker today. He's going to talk about UNC undergraduates to help us know how to help them, so some tidbits about them. He's going to speak for 15 minutes, and he may leave before the end of the presentation due to some prior commitments. After Mr. Crisp.
Not before the end of my presentation. that would be interesting.
And after his talk, Gardner is going to speak with 4 undergraduates who will share some of their experiences with our libraries. And now to Mr. Crisp.
Great. Well, I do apologize that I won't be able to stay for the entire thing. I have an 11 o'clock commitment, but I will stay as long as I can. I always love to take opportunities to engage with and hear our own undergraduates talking about themselves and their experience, because frankly it helps us all sort of learn to do what we do better. So I really am happy to have been invited and thrilled to be here. Anytime I see around campus people reminding themselves of why we're actually here, I want to be involved. And it's easy sometimes with a university as big as this one is, and with all that goes on, to forget why we're here, and that we're here for them, and to help them on their journey towards where they're going. And I laugh a lot and I joke with parents, and I spend a lot more time with parents now than I used to. But it's what you make of it, and it can be positive. And one of the things that I'm always talking with them about is partnering with us, because at the end of the day, what we're all after is the same thing. And you all might be surprised to know that the number one point that your parents want for you is for you not to come home. when you're finished here. Now there's always one mother out in the crowd when I say this is all about them not coming home and living in your basement when college is over, and there's always one mother out there who goes, oh. And I think to myself, you don't really mean that. It's also an interesting time of life for me, because for the first time in my career, my kids are of this age group. And so for the first time ever, you know, I can look at undergraduates and say, I have kids the same age as you, which I'm not sure if it just makes me old or well experienced, but we'll see. But it is an interesting time for educators, because we are well into the heart of what we call the millennial generation. And I think if you're going to be successful as librarians, as educators, as we all are, then understanding or trying to understand how this generation operates is critically important. Now, I always have to say as a caveat before I run my mouth about any of this stuff that I am about to embark on the grossest of generalizations. That you cannot capture, you know, any generation or any large group of people with the kind of descriptors that we use. They are as varied and diverse and different as all of the people in this room. So I think you have to keep in mind whenever we try to characterize our student body that if we're lucky, we might be able to say that we're talking about the majority of them. But we may not even be doing that. And so I also try to stay to some of the most general sort of trends when I talk about them. And since I've probably already used up 5 of my allotted 15 minutes, I should probably be somewhat short about it. So what do I think you need to know about this group of people? And then it'll be interesting to hear or to watch their faces as I'm talking. It's crazy. It needs to be fired or something like that, but we'll see. The first thing I say when I'm talking about this generation, and I do believe in generational characteristics in the grossest sense, again, not to overgeneralize. And I think we are all products of our environments and the context in which we live. And so when you start thinking about today's students, you have to think about the context in which they live. I'm teaching a class this semester, and I was in class the other day, and we were talking about, this actually dumbfounded me, which I didn't think much could anymore. We were in class talking about something, and I made a reference to Star Trek. And I swear, there was not a glimmer in the entire class of what, y'all know what Star Trek is, don't you? Thank you. I thought, this cannot be that nobody in this class knows what Star Trek is. I'm like, you're kidding, right? Mr. Spock, Captain Kirk. So I've sort of decided they were messing with me. But I'm not sure, because there wasn't a clue, and I thought, wow, that's different. But let me tell you a couple of characteristics that I think is important to understand about this generation. First and foremost, I think that it's important not to get caught up in the yin or the yang of a generation. Every generation, all the characteristics that we talk about can be a double-edged sword. And so if you read a lot about this generation, and you hear the knocks on this generation, people are always talking about, you know, how this generation is immature and how this generation clings to their parents and so on and so forth. And I think there are at times, some truth to that. But it also creates, I think, the most significant positive of this generation. This is the generation that we think of as the children of the sort of soccer mom generation. It is, in a lot of ways, the most sheltered and cherished, planned for, and accepted generation of people that we have ever seen. This is the generation that grew up with everybody making a team, nobody loses, everybody gets a trophy. Mom and dad spend almost all of their time running around behind them, focused on what they're doing, taking them to multiple practices and so on and so forth, and negotiating and sort of almost never hearing the word no. Some of them are probably sitting there thinking, I thought my name was no. And that might be true, but I think as a general characterization, that is sort of the descriptor that we put on this generation. What it ends up resulting in, though, which I think is fabulous, is this in some ways is a generation of students who come to Carolina not understanding that there are things in life that they're not supposed to be able to do. And so they do some of the most amazing things that we look at them and go, wow, when I was 18 and 19, I was just trying to get up in the morning and make it to class with my clothes on straight. And they're out here now creating multinational corporations. They're out here focused globally on all kinds of community service. They are creating new technologies. They are a part of all of the innovation that happens at Carolina, and their creativity and their dreaming about the way things ought to be drives all of us. Now, on the other side of that, you know, this is a generation that arrives at Carolina largely not accustomed to the realities of life, and that there are going to be things that they're not able to do. And I have professors every time I turn around looking at me and say, you got to do something. I had a student absolutely melt down on me because they got a C on a quiz, and we want to say, what? Are you kidding me? But for some of these students, it is what it represents is not a C. It represents the first time ever that they have hit a wall and failed to achieve something that they set out to achieve. And so when you think about this generation, you have to shy away from extreme characterizations and understand that what we have is one of the brightest, one of the most focused, and one of the most open to the world generations of people that we have seen. The other thing that I think you really have to understand about this generation, and we were joking leading up to this about the fact that there's not a watch to be seen up there. And that is not because they don't pay attention to time. It's because a watch is a useless piece of jewelry to most, because they all have telephones and they all have computers and they all have clocks on them that are much more accurate than these things us old folks walk around with. And that leads me to the thing that you have to understand that this is a generation born and raised and bred within tremendous technological change. And technology is an inseparable part of who they are and what they do. It's weird to these people like to sort of talk about you and characterize you. You'll get and it's profound. You know, I'm in class the other day, and we're doing group presentations, and I just did a presentation to, I don't really want to talk about it, but I just did a presentation to the Board of Trustees the other day. It took me 2 days to do the most simple of PowerPoints. You know, just how do I get the right background color, and how do I get the font to work the same way, and why do I have to go back and change it every time? And I finally end up having one of the work study students come in and teach me. Okay, help me, this is what I want to do this for me. I'm in class, and there wasn't a single PowerPoint. There were all these Prezi and something else and something else. Every one of them had videos embedded. They had moving pictures. They had, now they didn't always have the substance that I was after. But it damn well looked good. And, you know, I joke about that, but part of the reason that I mention that is because they are coming up engaged in computers, engaged in technology from their earliest time. Many of us, and certainly folks in my generation, remember when we changed over from writing on a pad and paper to the earliest of PCs, and you had a blue screen, and the fact that you could actually backspace and cut and paste was the greatest thing on earth. And you guys are laughing, but you don't understand. If you were writing 50 and 60-page papers by hand, right, and having to scribble out, crumple up, and start over, and all of a sudden somebody gives you this magic device where you can backspace and move something, that was the greatest thing in the world. And that was the cutting edge of everything. And then when they told me, you know, I could save it and come back later and start writing, I was like, oh my goodness. You know, I see how we got to the moon. But now, you know, they're laughing at us when I'm talking about this. Really? Because the concept of not being able to do whatever you want with technology, the concept of not being able to engage in technology to get you where you want to go is foreign to them. At the same time, one of the other side, it's always a double-edged sword. From the computer generation, from the video game generation, whatever you want to call it, is they don't always have the training by the time they get here in vertical depth that other generations have had. And my class the other day was a perfect example. It was the most fabulous stuff in the world, and with every single presentation, I was beating on them about, wait a minute, let's go a little deeper. And so, and it's not because they're not capable of it, it's not what they have learned. So the challenge with this generation is we have to meet them where they are, which means we have to try to understand their use of technology and how they use it, and we have to try to reach them to understand that sometimes all of that is not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is real depth about an issue. And I think that that's where sort of you all can come in. One of the interesting questions that I think is going to be asked is, what do undergraduates think of the library? And it was suggested to me that one of the things that I was supposed to do was tell you what undergraduates think of the library. And I thought to myself, well, I would sort of have to know that in order to be able to tell you. So I think I'll leave that to them. But I did do a little bit of homework, and I went out. I figured the best way to start getting a sense of what undergraduates think of the library is to ask them. So I went out with, I know an undergraduate or two. And so I went out and I started asking them, tell me about your sense of the library. And it is interesting, because what I heard, and it would be interesting to hear if it sort of squares up with what you all have to say, is they're not coming into college with much more of a different sense of the library than other generations did. There's lots of books there. It's where you go to do research. That was about it. I had people start telling me about how, well, we learned the Dewey Decimal System. We still use that? I wouldn't think we would. And then I had other people tell me, well, you know, if you want to go and sort of hang out with people and socialize, you go to the UL. If you want to be by yourself and really do serious study, you go to Davis. I'm sure that there's some of both going on in both places, but And I read a lot of stuff from librarians about how we have all these different capabilities and we can help them do research and we can get them that vertical depth and so on and so forth. They don't really necessarily know that. And so one of the challenges I think that you have as librarians is communicating and marketing and helping them to understand the breadth and depth of what you have to offer as librarians. And I hope that at the end of today, you will have gotten a better sense, hopefully, of how to go about doing that. Because I don't think that their first thought, when I was in school, the library was the one and only sort of option. There was no, I didn't have a computer. I think we had a computer lab that had 5 computers on campus. Nobody used them because nobody knew what they were. And the library was it. You went to the library, you buried yourself down in the books, and you asked librarians for help because you had no hope of figuring things out otherwise. That's not the case with this generation. Half the time they know as much as you do, at least about the technology. What they don't necessarily understand is how to apply it. And that's where I think there is real power and there's a real opportunity for you all to engage them. So I hope this was at least moderately useful, and I'm going to stop talking now and be interested to hear their take on all of this. But I do think that they need you as much, if not more, than they ever have. I think they don't always understand how much that they need you. And so our challenge is to help them see the possibilities inherent in the library and all that it can do and all that you can do as librarians and library professionals to help them on this journey. So, as we always say, they don't come back and live in mom and dad's basement. In fact, my dream in life is the time when I can go and live in one of their basements.
Thank you, Mr. Chris. I joked with Stephanie and Doug this week that now I get to pretend to be Charlie Rose, which is a small dream of mine. Very small. It's not dark enough, we don't have a big enough table. But we're going to go ahead and start into this because we'd like to get as many questions in as we possibly could. In front of us, we have our great panel. First, we have Lizzie Rostich, who is a first-year, likely psychology major. They gave us information as far as what they use the libraries for in the emails, but I'm not going to give that out yet, so we can just kind of get into that. Second, we have Daphne Chambers. Excuse me. First year psychology, Sean Olson. If you work in the UL, may look familiar. We called him from downstairs. Third year biology major, and Kimmy Gardner down on the end is a senior major, double major in international studies, women's studies, and a minor in social and economic justice, correct? Okay. We're going to be asking questions of your opinions, what you found, what you do, what you feel. If you feel like you have friends that have either differing views or views that can back up what you're saying, by all means speak up for them as well. You can get everybody. So the generic first question first would be, how do you use the university library? And we're talking, we'll just say library. So not this one, not this bill.
I mostly use it just to study, not even so much research, but I've learned lately, like through my classes, the resources like available to me. I went to the archives last week, and then in my first year seminar last semester, I actually like sat down with a librarian, and she helped me for like 2 hours, like getting books from like that are, you know, stored, requesting journals and stuff like that. So I'd say I'm learning to use it for research, but mostly now I just use it as a quiet place to study.
It's pretty much the same for me. Being first year, I'm not sure all that's available to me, but I am learning along the way. Through some of my classes, they want us to use some of the references and go to the libraries, particular libraries that research, such as the art library. So it's kind of good to go on this like kind of journey to learn more about all that UNC has to offer through its library systems, and we learn from there.
I have to say I use the library mostly for studying, just a quiet place to get my work done, but now since I'm getting papers in most of my biology classes, I've been going to some of the biology areas in the biology library to get the peer review articles. But they're also in Davis too, which is kind of a trek from Wilson all the way to the 8th floor of Davis some of the time. So that kind of gets in the way, but I mainly use the libraries for research and for quiet places studying, and the weekends, since I work in the UNC, check out a movie or two.
I've used the library a lot throughout college. Being a social science major and being a double major, I find myself in the library a lot of the time. I definitely use it as a quiet place to study. Now that I'm a senior, I don't go there as much. I think I'm kind of burned out a little bit on having studied so much in there. But I really am grateful for all of the resources that we have in our libraries, both books there and all of our subscriptions to different journals. I find that I all the time am logging in under my account to go on Google Scholar to look on so many different journals, and that's been really helpful for me. And so I found that I've used it really a lot over the years. I've had to, as I've gotten older, read a lot of really long research papers, and so it's been really useful for those purposes, and also as a quiet place to study.
A question we didn't write down, I just thought of. Have you guys had an introductory instruction session where you can place out an instrument?
Please stop.
Yes, ma'am. Place out.
I did summer bridge,
Okay.
and I remember that we had a librarian take us through how to navigate the library website. I think that qualifies
Yes.
as.
I haven't taken 102 yet. I took 101 first semester, so I'm
Did you
taking
have
it
a
next
session?
year.
Did you have a library session?
No, we didn't.
So obviously you guys use the libraries, but it seems like mostly for study space. And you've used the biology library. Does anybody else use branches? Mars?
Health
Chemistry,
science.
Health sciences.
I used art library with my art class when taking the first year seminar on gender studies and Renaissance art, which is very interesting. And so the reading there is just so dense and complex, but when I actually go there, I talk to librarians and they talk to me about resources that I can use to help me picking out books, because it's so overwhelming at times, but by talking to them, they help me kind of narrow it down and get more specific in my area.
I've been to the chemistry library, the new and inventable. I haven't used the resources, but I have a tutor that he kind of introduced it to me because we met there for the first time. And I really like that there's study lounges available there. I can't tell you how many times I've walked through Davis, like trying to find a study room. And people, there'll be like, in some of them, one person in it, or just like several people not doing work. The other day I was sitting in there and people were singing and they didn't realize the whole 7th floor of Davis could hear them. But I really like the chemistry library. It's quiet, always, and I just like that it's smaller and homey.
Lizzie and Casper, you mentioned that you seek help from a librarian and receiving help. Did you do, or the first years, did you know that beforehand, or do you feel like you needed some help, so you went to the person before?
I guess that was with my first year seminar last semester, which is why I think first year seminars are great, especially because they can introduce us into stuff like this. But we had a librarian available to us, specifically, like we could have a chat with her. There was always someone available, and so I just emailed her. We set up a time, and I was kind of expecting her to just kind of help me, throw some resources at me, and that would be it. But she actually sat down, helped me get these books on reserves because it was really hard to find information on my topic. And she actually helped me kind of skim through the articles and see where I could direct my paper and what I could focus on and how I could tie that in with what the professor wanted. And she was with me for 2 hours, so that was really helpful. So I guess I don't really know where the librarians are available to me unless they are given to me kind of through a class.
For me, it was somewhat similar. I didn't know that they would help me as much as they did. I knew that if I needed help, I could go to someone for help. I just didn't know that the librarian would be it. I guess at the time I thought it was, well, they're here, they're working, they must know something about the area. So that's my whole reason behind that. I didn't exactly know that they would go as much as helping me. I thought as far as finding books and navigating where to find e-journals and stuff. That's what I thought that it was my for. But now that I know that each working in that area, they're there for a particular reason. So obviously that they know some, pretty much a whole lot about that area, which is very
experiences with
Librarians. Mainly it's just to find certain articles or journals that are kind of hidden in the back corners. Because sometimes I don't have a lot of time to look for them, so I'll go and ask a librarian if they know the general location of where it is. Tell me find it. And then when they tell me, they've told me that here it is, but if you're looking for this, here's more journals that may suit you.
I've mostly spoken with librarians on projects where they've been really complex and it's been really hard to find information about them. For one of my classes, my group was doing a history of the campus Y actually. So we went into Wilson Library, which was really fun, and the librarians there were extremely helpful, helping us go through a lot of archival information that would have been really hard just going into Wilson to plunge into that. And so they were really helpful providing guidance then. And I also had to do a project for a women's studies class about Native American women's environmental and reproductive activism and health. And that is something where there's really scant information. And so one of the reference librarians worked with my group. We came in as a group and worked with us for like an hour just trying to find sources and admitting like this is a really hard topic, and we had to actually revise the topic because there was so little information and we had to hone in on the topic. But I would really say they're very available to help you in those, like whether you're trying to find just access to something or things that are really complex topics. I've found that they've been extremely helpful to me and available.
Sean's answers are interesting because he uses solely print journals, physically in print, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's just what you want to do, but you
Yeah.
find it easier. Do you browse? Is that what you
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly I use it for browsing because if I look at it on the computer, then I had to click and scroll down all the pages, which gets annoying if there's 30 of them. At least with the print, I can flip through, find the main points I need, and then take notes from that. Instead of having to read the whole 30-page article on reproductive success of the prairie chicken. But yeah, so the print journals are really nice for the type of papers I have to write versus the electronic ones.
Do any of you find your classmates students or
Most people are using electronic. I really still enjoy looking at pages in front of me. My eyes get really tired from looking at, if I'm, like you're saying, Sean, like if I'm looking at pages and pages, I really still like having that tangible paper in front of me, being able to underline and like work with the material. But from a convenience standpoint, I'd say that a lot of times if I am just trying to find initial resources, I am scrolling through them online, and then I might print them off after when I'm trying to take notes and get it more into the research.
I was going to say it's the same for me, printing it off as far as taking notes is usually at my position.
pretty much electronics?
Yeah.
Yeah. Timing. When do you use libraries? And this could be electronic version as well.
I guess primarily like between classes, all that stuff. I guess if I have a test coming up, I'll come like kind of separate myself from my dorm now that I'm really close to all my suite mates and stuff and being here. And that's enough with research late at night. It's nice that they're open late. So, I mean, I've been in Davis, so like 2 sometimes, but.
I usually go to the libraries on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I only have 1 2 o'clock class on Wednesdays, so it's perfect. I can organize my time just to spend some quiet time studying. I usually use the electronic, online during the week when I have to go look something up or find an article here and there. But that's generally
I use the library between 7 and midnight, Monday to Thursday, mostly. Just to sit there, work on papers, just quiet study time because I won't get work done in my room at all.
I'd say that I use it a lot from home, actually. I really, like if I'm about to do a research project, a really intensive one, I'll be looking at resources at home and really spend a long time before going to the library and looking through all the different books there and finding the call numbers, which I actually really enjoy. I really love doing that. I love feeling like I can find the call number. I don't know,
Maybe there's a future of libraries.
I like going in and being amongst all the books, so that's, I don't know, it's tangible, I like that. But I'd say that I really do use it a lot at home, which I really like doing, and especially for the journal engines, I use that a lot from home. And again, as a senior, I really don't feel like I've been in the library as much, but when I was younger, I was going in there all the time at night to study, just because, I don't know, it's really hard in the dorm to concentrate, and you just kind of want to have some separation from people and really get into your work, I think it's a really good place to go. But I would say Davis, I would go to really hunker down on work. I agree with the UL, I was smiling when you were saying that about the UL Davis distinction, because when I've been in the UL, a lot of times people are talking and I don't get as much done, so I would go to Davis more. I don't know if you all agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you are working from home, accessing things more developers, have you used chat? Have you chatted with us?
I thought about it, but I haven't used it. I don't know. No, I haven't used it, but I've definitely thought about it, and I'm always like, oh, cool, I can chat with them if I need to, but I just haven't used it. I guess I just kind of am like, I like to try to figure it out on my own. I like to try to, I don't know, figure it out myself. So.
Yeah, no, I haven't used chat because usually I'm looking for titles of certain things, and so Control F works really well.
I didn't even know there was a chat available. It's like, I go on the UNC website often, but I guess I'm focused on, the e-reserves, or I'm not really paying attention to what else is happening.
We can show links.
Like she said, I didn't really know it was available except for with my first year seminar. I actually did chat with one. It was kind of one of those questions I needed to know like right then to move on. So it was really nice that she was right there and I could ask her real quick, and that was done.
Okay. Cover the branches. If those of you that haven't used the branch, or the branches that you use, why did you use them specifically? And if you haven't, why not?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Chemistry, just because, like I said, my tutor, that's where we met, so that's how I knew about it. And I don't really know what's available to me as far as all the branches, so that's probably why.
I use art library in my first year seminar, of course. It's in Haynes. I mean, in Haynes Art Center, I cross it basically every day, so it's not as if I didn't know this non-existed. So when I finally went in there, that's when I got exposed to all that was available to me.
I've used the biology and health sciences libraries, and it's mainly for getting articles or books.
Yeah, I've used the health science library. I do, a lot of my focus is on women's health, and so that health science library has been really, really useful for getting a lot of different titles that I can't necessarily find in Davis.
This will be a strange question because you don't know the answer to start with. Are there things the library doesn't have that you think we should, or you would like to see? Things like, we just got a face-up book scanner, so you don't have to mash down the book.
That's great.
It's over in Davis.
I did sit with a librarian trying to do that.
So yeah, it's an awkward question if you don't know what's already out there. But
Yeah.
can you think of things that you would like to see?
More, I'd like to see more equipment. And my friends would too. At least in the MRC for recording stuff and all that. So a lot of my friends trying to do projects now, which require a lot of video equipment, a lot of audio equipment. And we have a lot of it, we don't have enough to satisfy all the needs at the point. And when the reserve day is a month or a month and a half out, that's when it gets a little strenuous.
One thing I would add, I mean, it sounds kind of like our generational, but even creating a Facebook page for UNC libraries as far as promoting, I know like during, I'm trying to think outside the box here, but as far as promoting, I know during study or before exam season, I know that they had some stuff going on here, but I didn't exactly know what or when or what times. So, I mean, not exactly Facebook, but finding a way to promote more so that students know exactly what's going on in the field.
Social networks.
I think social networks and of course emails work as well.
That comes on to the next question immediately after this one. How could the library better promote itself? So, how do you, if you heard something had happened, how did you hear about it? here's someone tell you it happened. What do your friends think? What do they say? How do you get news about the library?
When you say news, do you mean news about events or like?
Yeah, events, things like that. New technology.
I would say if I get that information at all, it would be from a professor
Okay.
in your class.
I think I was in the MRC one time and I saw like a poster noting, I think it must have been science, but I see posters of
Okay.
education.
I get it from the ORC.
You work here.
Yes.
I'm really trying to think. I feel like if I have something on my mind, I'll look it up. I'll go to the library website and just look at hours if I'm curious about what the hours are during exam period. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I could say too, like Liz was saying, through a professor as well. A lot of my professors have required that we have a library workshop when we're about to do research, which I think has actually been a really good idea. And I've had a few professors do that who are very into really helping us know how to do the research process and do it well. So we've been able to meet some of the resource librarians through that, and they've kind of connected us to resources, and having class pages I think is really helpful too. So I feel like I've gotten lucky with professors really incorporating that into my classes. So that's the way that I found out about things, but again, through professor.
Have you used course pages? Either from the main library website or professors told you this information is up on a page online. Not really through Blackboard. It could be in Blackboard, but I don't know which page. We have a couple of questions that were emailed to us from librarians previous to this. So one I'm just going to dive into. There's no real way to dance around this. We're concerned about theft. We consistently get emails about a backpack stolen, a watch stolen, a laptop stolen. This may go along with your answer on that Facebook page. Is there any way that we could reach out? This is again generalizing with your friends as well, kind of the whole class here. How can we let y'all know don't leave your stuff around? It kills us when we see people get stuff stolen.
I think you have some of these signs, just like maybe little like paper on the table, maybe even, or like taped to the like light or something in the middle. Yeah, I don't know. Like I've seen the one in front of the bathroom in the UL, and I can't think of any other way except for maybe sharing like that happens. I mean, people just don't think it happens because there's always people around them. I always, if I go to the bathroom, like, hey, can you kind of watch my stuff for me? Are you going to be here a few minutes? Because then the responsibility's kind of on them. Not on them, but like they're not going to, they wouldn't take it and they're not going to let someone else take it because they might come back and they'd be like,
I was going to say the same stuff, like people who do leave or go to the bathroom, they say, can you watch my stuff? And I do the same. I think that people know that they are having the risk of having something taken. As far as telling them, like, I guess there's no polite way not to say, hey, don't leave your stuff laying around, but I think that the posters and the sticky notes.
Yeah, so it really falls on to the responsibility of the individual, because at least in Davis, it was every half hour or hour that message comes on that breaks out of your studying. Yes, and that tells you don't leave your stuff, it may not be there, which is really nice because it keeps your reminder saying that this threat is still out there.
Okay. Simple but kind of a meta question. What can the library do to be more relevant? Kimmy, you have a very small time left here, so but for the other entry, what do you think we can do to not necessarily invade your life, but
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to say, I think that this may just be my opinion from the majors that I'm in, because I know some of my friends who have been in the sciences have more used the library for studying and not necessarily for research. Like they found journal articles mainly, but I think having professors require library workshop is really important. I think that you you really, I mean, I know people might get annoyed having to go to the workshop and they're like, I know this, but the truth is you might not know it. If you're in a class about a topic that you really don't know a lot about and you don't have experience with, I think it's really important to listen to the resource librarian who has a lot of experience in this and appreciate what they have to say, and listen to resources that you would have no idea to look at otherwise. So I think making that a requirement, and I know that may be up to professors, but I think that's something that is really crucial for a lot of students, especially younger students as well, because I didn't really get that till I was a junior. And I think that incorporating that in when they're younger is something a really good idea that would be useful for just getting at that at a younger age rather than when you're a junior and you kind of may have found your way yourself.
I agree with that, because right now my Biology 201 TA is trying to teach us how to use the library website, and he's failing at it pretty badly. And so I'm going to be in the libraries looking for some of your help, but yeah, just a course that teaches you how to use the system, just to get us students familiar with it, to be able to not have to pester you every other minute.
Even through the use of using, like hearing you speak about how you use the workshops and stuff, it actually motivates me to get more involved. Because as a first year, like, of course, I'm totally new to this. To hear upper graduate students or even seniors to talk about their experiences with the library and how resourceful it is, makes me want to get a head start. So I guess a way of getting, I don't know how it would happen, but getting older students to talk to the entering students, even those who are looking at colleges to talk about that.
I guess I would just love to know, maybe even through name tags, who the librarians are, because sometimes I feel that I go up to a resource desk and they're not helpful. So like, if I'm in my dorm, am I gonna walk all the way up to the library and be not sure? Like my 20-minute walk from South Campus if I'm not gonna get help. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it's worth the time. Because I don't know who you guys are. Sometimes they don't lead me to you, I feel like, so.
Okay. Not helpful in the sense comparing to your 2-hour session with.
Well, like one time she was just like, well, I don't really know where any of them are, or like I had never looked for a book in this library. Well, if you go on the elevator, it'll tell you where to go. Well, that's not very helpful. I mean, I found it, but and it was Davis, so I was just kind of like, all right.
And sometimes to add to that, we're not sure, well, I know sometimes I'm not sure, I don't want to bother someone if they're doing work. Like, I don't know what work librarians have to do. I know I have to get, like, research and stuff done, but if they're already engaged in something, like, I don't want to take up too much of someone else's time, is what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
sometimes
And I feel like some people, like I'm a talker, I'll go up and ask anybody anything, but I feel like some people don't have that. Like they're a little bit, like you said, sheltered, and they won't go up and ask for the help. So I guess letting them know that that's available to them.
Real quick, last one before we open up to questions from the floor. It's from Wilson, one of the Wilson librarians and the archivists. Are any of you in student organizations? If so, have you archived your materials?
I'm in APO, or I'm like pledging APO, which is a community service fraternity, and I don't know if they have or not, but we have like a ritual at the beginning that has like all the history and stuff, so that would be like interesting to see.
I'm in NSRC's, like, Minority Student Recruitment Committee,
More about than that.
and I don't think we have that much. I haven't really looked into it, honestly, but I'm pretty sure there is some information on the university as far as under multicultural affairs, but I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, I didn't have any time to join any organizations this year. Not with 17 hours, so I haven't used the archives or that.
As I was saying before, I really use them for the campus-wide project. It was for a geography class, actually, and so we're kind of talking about the space and place of the campus-wide and how it's changed over time, and so looking at those archives was really helpful. I'm very involved with the Apple Service Learning Program, but I'm not sure if they have archives. I would think that they do. I know someone a few years ago read one. Okay.
Well, then ask the question.
So we need it more so people can go back and do research on the service learning project. So we have a lot of archives from the 80s when we started.
Yeah.
brochure?
Website, just the main library
The
website.
main library website?
Like when you look through, like when you type in the keyword.
Looking online catalog?
I think I'm pretty familiar with it.
I'd say I'm very familiar with it.
I pretty much know where to navigate.
And how often do you use it, or you go to it first, or you go to it secondary?
I go to it first.
Yeah, first.
Yeah.
I sure appreciate you guys coming to talk to us. This is really helpful. You were saying earlier on how important the libraries are for study space, quiet and group study space. Of course, I'm thinking in my head all these other great quiet study spaces in the various libraries that you may not know about, and kind of drawing on previous question, how might we get the word out to you that there's that great reading room on the 3rd floor of Wilson Library that's absolutely beautiful and very quiet. And I'm in the music library, we've got lots of cubby holes and carols that aren't used, and lots of other spaces. How could we get the word out to you about other places that are important for you to be able to study?
Well, I'm going to venture a guess and say at least 60% of students go to Davis first to try to find a place to study. And so you can have a sign or one of the circulation desks help students or librarians there say that if you can't find any study spaces in here, then there are other libraries on campus. And that just doesn't go for Davis, that goes for the UL or health sciences, or just anywhere that they know that students are going to LAUNC to study.
I just thought of this, if there was something on the library homepage that said, looking for a place to study? I mean, did you look at the homepage for something like that, maybe?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would.
Yeah.
I think also because people were using Blackboard so much, if there would be some way to put that on there, depending on what course you were in, and maybe what libraries would be applicable to that, I don't know, but I think that we go on Blackboard so much to be looking at homework assignments, that if somehow there could,
That's your portal.
it's a portal, and so I don't know if there could be some sort of announcement on there, but I think we're all using Blackboard a lot.
Is there a portal within the Blackboard that you have that goes directly to the library?
Yeah.
I mean, even a general portal?
Yes. Yeah, there's a
Is there?
separate.
Okay.
So that's kind of making fun.
Yeah, putting it on the homepage would be great because, as the Vice Chancellor said, we are entering the digital age, and so I spend a lot of my time on the internet. So if that's up on a website, I'll be able to read it.
Like she said too, the Facebook thing, like I think that would be a great idea too. Just because it would, like maybe even if it was detailed, like, you know, the different libraries, where they're located even. Because even if it was listed on a poster in Davis, I don't, like my sister always tells me she's in the health sciences library. I'm like, I don't know where that is. Like,
This is actually not a question directly about the libraries, but where can you get information about other things that are happening on campus, especially if it's got kind of an academic focus or relation? How do you talk to us about your information consuming habits and where you learn about things, right?
I would say, like I said, professors a lot of time, and then Facebook also. There's always groups like and invitations to events and stuff like that.
Same here with even posters. Like I know sometimes, like in one of my first year seminars, we were reading a book by Isabel Wilkinson, and she came to the university. So seeing my actual professor convey that she came here, so it was great to see like she read the book and the author came. So events such as that, I usually see through Facebook or posters.
I usually hear it from my friends that they spend a lot more time in the library than I do, and so, or union or anywhere else that has events that are academic related. So they always ask me, "Hey, you're going to this?" I didn't know about that. So putting on a Facebook page or something that's accessible to many students would be very helpful.
I hear about most things through listservs, actually. After Fall Fest, my first year, I subscribed to a ton of listservs, some of which I've gotten off of now because it was really inundating at first, but so I subscribe to a lot of different public service listservs, which can sometimes have advertisements about academic talks. Sometimes professors are sending you things, but For the most part, I feel very informed by subscribing to listservs, and that's been something that's useful for me. I don't know if library announcements could be made on that, but I don't know, being on different listservs is really the way I find out about most of my information on campus, and usually it's reinforced by a friend or a Facebook event or a professor, but that's my primary way of learning about things.
I actually think that's a great idea. If you could, I don't know if you could have like a sheet in the libraries to start a listserv for people who do want to be on that, and you could announce it, events through emails.
I'm curious when you guys were talking about the difference between how you like paper in front of you to annotate and highlight versus electronic documents, and I'm just curious, are you aware that Acrobat Pro and Skim, which is free for the Mac, allow you to do all that? Are you aware of that?
I am, yes.
You are, but you still like to print?
I like to print, I like to feel it.
What about you two?
I have a Kindle, so I absolutely love like taking notes and highlighting. But there are certain, like when I'm doing desk reading, where I think it's easier for me to like come back rather than have to scroll.
I'm not really sure. I just print. I don't know about that. I just usually print if it's depending on what it is. If I need to highlight and take notes, even reading, I just don't like to stare at the screen for that long.
Got a couple of questions. One thing you haven't mentioned is Twitter. So I'd like to know what you think about actually that as a medium of communication. And then the second one is, we've talked a lot about libraries as physical space, but libraries more and more is the virtual library. So my question is, the depth of material, how your preference is to really first enter into that world. So you were talking about Google Scholar, Google, one search, then somehow approaches books, articles. We talked about a catalog, but a catalog doesn't necessarily get you a lot of journal, into the journal lit. So how would you like to see that approached as far as entering into the virtual world?
I would say for the most part, when I do that, I do look in the catalog and then look at Google Scholar. Those are kind of the first things that I look at personally. But I definitely would say that I do it. You're very right about it being virtual. I mean, that's like the main entrance into it, really. Unless maybe a professor has given you like a bibliography of things that they're going to be talking about all semester, and you can kind of look at that, or look maybe in a book that you have and look at sources that might be useful for your research. Sometimes I'll flip to the back of a book that I'm reading in a class and say, oh, are these useful sources maybe for my research that I'm going to be doing? And then as far as Twitter, I don't use Twitter at all. So that's, I know a lot of people do, but I don't use it at all. And so I would say Facebook is more what I prefer, but that's just my personal.
No, yeah, I mean, I go to Google Scholar first, but when I see 3 million returns, and it's searching the entire article for my keywords, not just the abstract as the title, which I'm not looking for. So I go to the library website once I find a few that I'm looking for, then I go to the library website to narrow down my search, to try to get the more specific articles I need. But as far as Twitter, it doesn't have to be.
I don't have a Twitter either. I usually go to the library website, search in that catalog. If I can't find it, or if it's just one resource that my professor had alerted me for that's not on there, I'll usually JSTOR it or use Google Books.
Yeah, I would say the same for me. I'll try to go to the library's website first, and then if I don't find an article through there, I'll try like Google Scholar and stuff.
And just a quick follow-up, if you had a mechanism to, we're talking about all the Google hits, but if you had a mechanism to go into the journal literature and have it sort of organize it well, would you go there? I mean, would that be something that would be very important to you on a library's site?
Well, I guess what kind of gets is I use general keywords, and so it'd be nice to tell me like in each section, like results, methods, or the abstract, how many hits are each one. So I know where it's mostly getting that stuff. If it's getting it mostly from results, and I go, okay, that's a good article. But if it's getting it from the introduction or from the materials, then it's useless to me.
You guys use Google Scholar from our site to Google Scholar. Both, okay.
I use it from the site because then a lot of times it links you to the article at UNC, which is what's so great about it, because if not, then you're caught looking it up, and then which is good experience.
Are you on campus when you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. our time's up. I know that everyone probably has a bunch of questions, but maybe we can do this again.
Or email questions and you can respond.
You might not want it. You have a couple of weeks to free up. But,
Facebook page.
yeah, Facebook. Okay. Thank you ever so much for coming. This was very informative. Thank you.
Right on.